Hello there. Thanks again for listening. Here's another interview episode of the Impulsive Thinker podcast. This episode has been brought to you by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. And today I have a guest. Her name is Karen Richard. We first met on a adult ADHD roundtable for Real Talk with Ryan Jesperson. And her story, I think, is very important for us to share here and discuss. Karen is formerly a former speech pathologist and now a tech startup co-founder of Made Live, which is an online platform to publish your children's book faster and easier. Thanks you for coming on, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me and the opportunity to continue that conversation from when we first connected.
Yeah, that was a roundtable. It was me, myself and yourself, and a local doctor in Edmonton talking about adult ADHD. And like Heidi Bernhardt from CADAC did mention, it was the first time ever there was an hour dedicated to adult ADHD.
Really?
Yeah, that blew me away.
Wow.
And that's why I thought it was a massive win. I'm very fortunate and privileged to be part of that also.
Absolutely.
But what really intrigued me is you yourself are recently diagnosed. Like, I mean,
right.
recent. Like for me, it's a few years ago, but you are what now?
I mean, official diagnosis would have been this September. So, diagnosed in September and started exploring treatment options. Yeah, like real new.
Yeah.
I've been truly sort of tossing around the thought that this might be a thing for about a year, really seriously for about 6 months. So once I kind of understood myself a lot better, I was able to line things up and find out what I needed to move forward pretty quickly.
Okay. Can you tell me more about, you said about a year ago, you're starting to look into it. Like, what were the early warnings, or why did you start looking into it?
So honestly, I've been reflecting on that a lot. I know from what I follow along a lot of different people on Twitter and Instagram and all the socials around adult ADHD, and particularly around women with ADHD. And there is a really significant uptick since COVID started. So I started looking into that. So with my background as a speech pathologist, a huge part of that is research and doing research and understanding what is good research and where are the correlations versus causations, and really trying to dig through some of those things. So I really, as the ADHD brain does, I sort of chased the dopamine and went down the rabbit hole to see what I could find out about it. And recently, I've come to learn that there's been a huge increase, especially in women. And I think what happened is COVID hit. I went from a really structured work environment, which I'd been working in my entire career, where I had somebody else to answer to, following along somebody else's schedules, routines, expectations. And I actually, with COVID, I really started struggling when I was working at home, especially trying to balance, parenting at home and trying to ignore all the distractions that are at home when trying to get your work done, and really started burning out. We had already started the business, but it was more of kind of a side hustle at that point. And when I left that in October of last year, that's what, like, it felt like the wheels fell off the bus. It was just any structure and routine that was holding me together fell out from under me.
And that's a very valid point, which I don't think a lot of people understand. Neurotypical or neurodivergent is, as much as we don't like the ADHD brain doesn't like to be harnessed, but we do thrive on structure.
And so routine,
and routine is huge, and that has a lot to do with reserving and conserving mental energy. So yeah, like, you only got so much mental energy a day, and the ADHD brain has a lot less, especially if we have to focus on stuff we do not like to do or is boring and mundane. It actually, it takes a lot of focusing energy for us to force ourselves to focus. If we hyper focus, it hardly burns any energy. And that's what I
Right.
found. So if I have my routines in the morning, I don't have to remember this, I don't have to remember that. I'm conserving that energy for the rest of the day.
Right.
So the structure and the routine disruption, and you're right, COVID just disrupted that, and then and women have had to work from home and also take care of the kids and make sure that they're doing their online learning. So yeah, that disruption, the structure, routine just completely exploded. And you're right. Diagnosis, especially in women, really skyrocketed. It's not that we got problematic people. It's just,
no.
what's the difference? Why are women overlooked on the ADHD diagnosis?
I think, and again, going back to, my experience with working as an SLP, I worked with a ton of little boys with ADHD. I mean, they were a huge part of my caseload. So it's not like I wasn't exposed to this and wasn't aware of it. I know tons of people who have kids with the diagnosis, but women have different language skills. They are, when we're speaking in really broad categories. Obviously, I love that mug, by the way. Little distracted moment.
My Lego mug.
Really, I love the Lego mug. The little girls tend to develop really strong language skills. So their ability to say read social cues, that masking side of things, what is expected of me and how do I fit in here? I don't ruffle any feathers, don't draw attention to myself, and just try to shove myself into this little narrow box. And if I can stay in that little narrow box and keep everybody happy, everything's good. And I think that happens. That's certainly my experience and the experience of every single adult woman with a late diagnosis of ADHD that I have ever spoken to.
So it's not only the language aspect or the mastery of the language, it also has to do with social pressures.
Totally.
Dynamics.
Yeah. And I mean, as long as the little girls aren't, climbing the walls and they're not a behavioral problem, they're the girl who got the rural park card every year that said, great student, but she talks too much.
Yeah.
I had big ideas.
Try harder.
Well, it wasn't even so much a try harder. I did really well in school. So that was, again, also not a problem.
Should apply herself in certain areas that she doesn't care about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If I didn't care, good luck. It had to be, I had to make myself care. In terms of, for me, that was becoming a perfectionist and becoming, I always wanted to be not only the top of the class, but I also wanted to be the first done. So you can't be both. Like it does. They don't really support each other.
A little bit of a high achieving there.
Yeah, absolutely. So having that perfectionistic tendencies of like, I would make the stupidest mistakes. And I did that all through elementary school. And I hated checking my work. Because it's boring. It's boring. Or I would get into these loops of like checking my work and then going, did I understand that question right? And then I would change it and the changed answer would be wrong. And I had it right first. And like, I'd overthink it. So I learned to just go hard, go fast and be done.
Yeah. In and out, first answer. My theory was if I couldn't figure it out, there's no point sitting there staring at it.
Totally. Yeah. Especially, I mean, you sort of, it takes the wind out of your sails if you don't feel like you've got it, if you've got that kind of perfectionistic tendency. So I think it's the language stuff. It's understanding the social world, and in the social world for little girls and young women, if you can keep up the language skills and the social side of things and understand what people are expecting of you, it's real easy to just make yourself fit a mold. I always felt like I was kind of a chameleon, and now I know why. I'd hang out with a group of friends that would have this one speech pattern, and I'd come home speaking that way for a week.
Yeah.
And like it's all of these weird little things. And now I'm looking back going, oh, I know what that was. Yeah. Now it makes sense.
So the language ability, you doing well, well at school and succeeding just basically masked the disability. Totally. 100%. And you're able to create your own systems and mechanism to oversee it or dampen it down.
Right? And set expectations. I mean, looking back, I didn't hate doing the work that I did or choosing the field that I chose, but that was a calculated move. That was I can do this. This is like, it's interesting enough. It's good enough, but it wasn't the thing I was most passionate about. I didn't have the confidence to follow that because I couldn't see where it would go.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's a common thing I'm hearing from other people, ADHD entrepreneurs, especially the high achieving ones. Like
Yeah.
it's not where exactly where I wanted to go, but it would do or would do, or a lot of people just didn't know
Yeah.
what to do.
I had no idea,
Yeah.
really. Yeah. I think in my last couple of years of high school, I floundered and had like 5 or 6 different things I was going to do, and they were all drastically different. I was going to be an English prof, and then I was going to be a lawyer, and I was going into nutrition and dietetics, and then I was going to be a teacher, and I ended up
Mhm.
a speech pathologist. Like there's not really a lot in common. And those tests that are supposed to tell you what you should be good at told me
Oh,
I should be
yeah, yeah,
the aptitude test.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think mine told me I should have been a ski instructor or a swimming instructor. I'm a terrible swimmer, and I grew up in northern Saskatchewan, and we cross country skied. Like it's just like this is not where I wanted to go.
That test didn't take into account where you were from.
No, no, or my skills and abilities, like at all.
Yeah, because I still wonder if I wasn't pushing engineering, what I would do, because I did have different interests, and you know what, I don't regret the road I'm down, where I went through, but at the same time, what were my true passions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of research. You've been diagnosed about a month and a half, 2 months ago. What have you learned? Have you identified and sorted out your own ADHD?
My traits, yeah. There's a couple things that I've learned about that I didn't even know were a thing. Rejection sensitivity.
Oh
I
boy.
had no idea. I had no idea that was why I was the way I was.
Mhm.
I've been a people pleaser, but also a perfectionist. I can do something if it's for somebody else. So somebody else's deadline or somebody else has an expectation. I can do that, but I can't do anything for myself.
Mhm.
Structure and routine is hit and miss. I can plan, like I am the collector uh of hobbies. Like I'll go down this
Mhm.
like, oh, I really want to get back into sketching. I really loved art as a kid, and I was the artist in the class. And I want to go back into that. And I get the books and I get the pencils and I get the charcoal and I get the everything. And then I don't touch it. It's like
Yeah.
the fun part is acquiring it all and
Yeah.
then stashing it in a closet.
Mhm.
Um, I also recently learned about something referred to as doom bags or doom boxes. I had never heard of this, but it's like the boxes or bags of doom of random crap that don't associate with each other that get shoved in a bag or a box and then get thrown in a closet or under the stairs and put away out of sight, out of mind, and they never get dealt with.
And you
My
can
house
never
is
get
full of
rid of
them.
it. And you can't get
No,
rid of it.
no,
No.
and my house is full of them. I mentioned before the whole chasing the dopamine idea that
Mhm.
I'm really realizing is huge for me. It's like it's sort of the dog with a bone. I get it's something gets under my skin, or like I need to know something, and I can't continue doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing unless I pay it the attention it is
Mhm.
demanding of my brain. So, like, one of the things I'm doing for work right now is really trying to take a deep dive to really get the numbers of the children's book publishing industry globally. And these are all like protected reports, and I'm trying to find it. And I'm like, I need to get down to this number. I know what things I need in order to figure it out, but I can't find the numbers that I need to get to the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah,
And I've been doing it for 3 days.
yeah,
Like,
you're
I will
because you're
not let it go.
interested, something new,
Yeah.
it's novel, never been, yeah, it's amazing. What
And then, and
else? Go
yeah,
ahead.
the other things I was just going to say, and then the other things, I mean, the more focused I get and the more I follow the dopamine, the less I take care of myself. So I heard you talk about routines in the morning. Like I'm terrible at feeding myself. I'm terrible at making sure I go work out unless I, get out and walk the dog
Mhm.
in the morning. But anything that's for my own personal and mental health always seems to take a backseat.
Well, that's common for a lot of us,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Um, that has a lot to do with our background with people pleasing or trying to well, it's also that, the perfectionism you're talking about usually turns into workaholism, right?
Totally.
And that the perfectionism and the workaholism just eats you, and then you forget to do stuff for yourself. Or like for me, I don't know if this resonates with you at all, Karen, but it's almost if if I want to take the time to exercise, I'm actually going to step away from my family or from the office or from my
Yep.
staff. And I feel guilty about that.
100%.
Right. It's, like
100%.
right now, my engineering company, I'm doing a lot of protecting my own time and saying no to that stuff. And when I'm done at the end of the day, I just leave no matter what time it is. And that's
Right.
still tough. It's guilty, and always try to stay on top. Like, I don't know, like, does this resonate with you, Karen, that you can do things, figure stuff out very quickly and execute them way quicker than most people?
Generally, yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
then I had my engineering manager told me, he goes, you just did this report that would have taken me 2 days. You just did this in 2 hours.
Right.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I'll add a couple more hours in there if it take me back 15 years ago with less experience. But if I get down
Of
to
course.
it, and then this is where we overvalue. So I just did about 16 hours of worth of work in 2 hours. I still have 6 hours in the day, so I'm going to keep going.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not, it's that, like, I've been trying to figure out how I can essentially reward myself outside of feeling the rewards that come with accomplishing something for work. Like, really, what are the other things that will feed my soul, feed my brain, feed me the neurotransmitters, whatever it is, that will, become this sort of self-fueling machine, right? Like, I need to get that in the system.
Right.
Right now, I'm getting that from accomplishing things at work. So I don't
And
want to put it away
good.
to go work out
Right.
or to go cook dinner
And
or
there,
to go.
and it's exactly what you said. There's the workaholism. You just
Yep.
that's where you're happy. That's where you're going to, so you're going to do more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are definitely times, like, total open book here. There are times where we've got an 8-year-old, not quite 8-year-old, and we're, her dad and I are both, have these tendencies. He does not have ADHD, but he definitely has that
The high achiever.
perfectionism and the high.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, it's in the house. So I mean, this poor kid doesn't stand a chance. But she she really has to vie for our attention, and I feel horrible about that, because it's, unless she's really going over the top, she just kind of flies under the radar. And she's a great kid, and she's she's a high achiever, and she's doing her own thing. But we're horrible at taking the time that we should to just go and have family time and not feel guilty about it. So it's like,
Yeah.
we're trying to set the expectations and just be like, okay, as a family, we're going to go skiing, every week. And that's a non-negotiable. Even if none of us want to, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. My oldest actually starts saying we're going public skating every Sunday now. She
brilliant.
initiated, and that's really good. And it's in the calendar. It has to be scheduled or we forget. She's also ADHD, so we'll forget, but it's in there. But like, the one thing about the self-care is very tough, because a lot of it has to do with the fact is we were always living and trying to achieve to someone else's measuring stick, and it was never enough in our own eyes. So we always kept doing more, achieving more, working out, working more. And I was talking to my John Workington. He's a ADHD entrepreneur too. He was saying he was able to build self-care in his life because what he realized was he loves work. He likes to work. He likes to be busy. Me and him are hyperactive physically too, which is rare with adults. But when he actually said that I need to work at home, what he ended up doing was he redefined work.
Right.
So I'm still working at home, but work at home is now reading. It is.
Oh, okay.
For him was a subtle shift. I'm always working. He just said, I'm always working. But now a task of work is acceptable to be reading.
Right. Like for pleasure, not
for pleasure.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he's work. It's still work, but it's just a redefined task that supports his self-care.
Yeah, it's just reframing it, really.
Yeah.
Like to trick yourself into thinking you're doing it for somebody else, almost. Like it's.
Oh, that's
I know
nice
the
one.
workarounds. I know it's. Yeah, and it's. I really struggle with that, like that idea of, looking for that that feedback or that the praise, the outside praise. Like
we need that.
We do. Like I do something really well for work,
we've learned that
Yeah,
we needed it, I think is the
totally.
better way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, it shocks me. I mean, like, I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I will do something that I'm proud of, and I can't just feel proud of it. I have to go upstairs and announce it to my husband slash co-founder and be like, "Hey, look what I did." Like, he doesn't need to do that. He can
Yeah.
do sort of, like, once a week, tell me what he
Yeah.
accomplished, but it's not for praise. Like, it's a long road to try to figure out how to, and I don't want to say fix, but really how to manage um, some of these things, which are not the healthiest. I mean,
No.
I will never pretend that I've got the, healthiest mental health or self-care ever.
Mhm. Yeah. It's like almost outgrowing our bad habits.
Yeah,
Like that,
yeah.
like what you just described there, learning to need outside approval. It's a habit,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
It
I
was
could,
it
I,
it was learned.
yeah,
It
I
worked
totally
for
hear
me
you
as a
on that.
kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So it's trying to figure out, oh, how we can really learn more about ourselves has been kind of my biggest thing. Not every single thing I hear or read about with adult ADHD and women resonates with me, but I don't expect it to either.
mhm.
Really getting that idea of, what aspects do. And I mean, I even this morning I saw something where there was a guy on TikTok, which is full of ADHD people, and talking about why the ADHD doesn't show that much in you. And he's like, well, it's because I've got ADHD, and he holds up one hand in a fist, and this is my ADHD, and he pulls out his other hand with an open palm, and he said, this is my anxiety, and it goes right on
Right up
top
top. Yeah.
of my ADHD, and it just
It
holds it
hides
down
it.
because I'm more anxious about what other people are going to think of me, so I control it, but
Mhm.
it's still there.
Yeah.
And learning things like, the first time I heard that the hyper focus is a type of inattention. Like, it's that you're attending to too many things. That I'm trying to think of a better way to frame it.
No, our
Um,
distraction is because we have so much attention on too many different things at once. While the
right.
hyper focus is we got attention to one, which people
Yes.
misinterpret as inattention because we're not paying
Yes.
attention to them.
Yes. And that idea of, like, I mean, even I hate the ADHD, like the definition, like
Yeah.
the what
The
attention
terms.
deficit
Yeah.
hyperactivity disorder, because I always went, well, clearly don't have that. I'm not hyperactive. Like, it's just so easy to dismiss it. But then when somebody said that hyperactivity can reside strictly in your brain,
Yeah. Mental hyperactivity.
mine never stops.
No, never will.
No, like, I don't have a nothing place. I don't have a place that my brain can just go and empty.
No.
And the first time I heard somebody say they had one, I'm shocked.
Yeah. All we can do is slow it down. And that's what
Totally.
I reframed it to. I can never relax. I physically can't relax,
No.
mentally or physically. So all I can do is find calm. I'm searching for calm, not relaxation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, instead of having the big swells of the ocean, I'll take the lapping waves. Like,
Yeah.
it's never going to be dead calm.
What exactly? What can we do to bring the big waves down to lapping waves is definitely a great symbology on that. I think that's a great way
Yeah.
to end that.
Yeah.
Um, what advice would you give someone right now, knowing what you just learned over the last year with your recent diagnosis? What's the one piece of advice you give to the listeners right now?
Don't be scared to be honest with yourself. If you have ADHD, I think it's an ongoing learning process. I'm still new in this. I can't speak as if I'm some kind of expert, but it is my lived experience.
Mhm.
Don't be scared to evaluate yourself, figure out what your profile is, and understand that that might change. I mean, I'm personally doing a bunch of digging into uh, cycling medication levels because of hormonal fluctuations, because
Mhm.
I'm a woman and that's my reality. And that has been really empowering. And it's only been, a couple months that I've been able to experience that. So, you know, if you're constantly evaluating yourself, you will figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Mhm.
Um, and if you're honest with yourself, it makes it a lot easier to be honest with other people. And I think for me, if I didn't have the support of my immediate family, my husband, my close friends, I would have ignored this. So that support piece, and I know you touched on that in the roundtable that we were involved in, but that support and that environment and having great people around you will make such an incredible difference.
Yeah, it make or break you very easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, like be honest with yourself and evaluate yourself. And you said constantly. And I think even if you, and I think it's constantly forever, because the one thing I want the listeners to be aware of here is, what I've noticed me, and you're going to notice yourself, is as you reevaluate, you're going to change. Will change as you learn new things. Like for me, it's like, once I've kind of mastered one little thing, I'm working on the next, and
Totally.
the real person I've always been is showing up. And the thing is, just keep in mind, like the way you were in the past, or who you were in the past, is not who you are now, and your future self will be different as long as you're moving forward. So you got to,
and you can forgive yourself for what, the mistakes and what you did, and having that moment to, like, at the end of the day. And I actually learned this from my husband, who, again, doesn't have ADHD, but spend 30 seconds at the end of the day while you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep, reflecting on your day. Think about the things that were true to you and who you are and who you want to be. Mm-hmm. And the things where, and I don't want to call them mistakes, but where it's incongruent. It didn't match up with who you want to be or how you want tomorrow to look. And go to bed thinking, tomorrow I will do this instead. And just setting that intention. It sounds really hokey, but having that moment to check in on yourself and do that, every day, or, every second day is really helpful.
Yeah. And that's key, because that's personal growth. You
Absolutely.
can only grow by understanding what didn't go well, what didn't go right. And that's an obstacle and an opportunity to improve yourself and grow. And it's the only way is by self-awareness. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the key.
And congratulations on your self-awareness and to get your diagnosis. And what I need the listeners to take away from this today is that don't be scared to be honest, and don't be scared to evaluate yourself. Mm-hmm. And you know what, if be true and honest to yourself, see what you think you are, and then you just change it. You can. New habits, new routines. Personality is not permanent. It can change with your future self.
Absolutely. And it's, don't be afraid to discover that these things that you thought were quote unquote just who I am is because of the ADHD. And that's not lesser than or better than. It's still you. That doesn't change, but you can improve and you can be better. And the more you understand about yourself, you resonate a different frequency. You attract what you need if you put it out there. Like it's all of these big ideas of, my grandma always used to say, water always finds its own level. Like if you can self-reflect and, try to surround yourself with positivity and people who support you, that also helps you not be afraid to do that self-reflection. So it's a self-feeding machine.
Self-feeding machine. Great point to end. Well, Karen, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today. And I know our listeners got a lot of tidbits, and I think it was your perspective, your lived experience. I know a lot of women entrepreneurs who are listening to this will definitely gain a lot, or even the inattentive men. A lot of stuff you explained was inattentive ADHD. Mm-hmm. So thanks again, Karen, for sharing your story. And to the listener, I'd like to hear from you what you thought about this episode. And are you going to evaluate and be honest with yourself? Let me know at questions. Send me an email at questions@theimpulsivethinker.com. And please don't forget that this episode was sponsored by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. And they are the ADHD charity for Canada. And you can make a donation at www.cadac.ca/donate. You could also find that information in the show notes, and the link to May.live in the show notes, so you can check out what Karen is working on. Thanks again, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to the listener for gifting us your time. Take care.